Hi, everyone, and welcome to our mid-month character conversation, where we pause for a few minutes to slow down, reflect, and pull something meaningful from our most recent episode. I'm Jennifer Hogan, here along with my co-host, Laura Casey, and this month's episode was a little different. Instead of one long interview, we brought listeners into the middle of the Hope Institute Network Summit through a series of live conversations with leaders like Dr. Lickona, Drayton Nabers, and Alabama State Superintendent Dr. Mackey. And honestly, Laura, what stood out to me wasn't just the wisdom from each individual conversation. It was the thread running through all of them. And that was that every single one of them kept coming back to the same idea, and that was that character's not extra. It's not accidental. And leadership is always teaching something, whether we realize it or not.
You know, you're so right. So many leaders are looking for this big breakthrough moment that'll suddenly change the culture of their school or organization. But the truth is, culture's rarely built in the big moments. It's usually in those ordinary ones. It's built in the hallway conversations that nobody else notices, in the tone of the meeting, in the way a leader responds when pressure hits or when conflict shows up unexpectedly. People are constantly paying attention to the environment around them. They're asking, do I feel seen here? Do I feel heard? Do I feel valued? Do I feel challenged to grow? And leaders answer those questions every single day, often without even realizing it. What made this episode so powerful to me is that none of those leaders talked about character as this abstract idea or leadership slogan. They talked about it as something that's lived out in real time, in conversations, in relationship, in consistency, not as some theory, but something that's practiced daily.
Absolutely. One line from Dr. Mackey has stayed with me ever since the summit, and he said, it's not just teaching it, it's demonstrating it. And honestly, I think that gets to the heart of all this work, because schools don't just become places of character simply because adults talk about respect or put values on a wall. They become places of character when students consistently experience those values through the people around them. And students are incredibly perceptive. They pay attention to the emotional climate of a building far more than we sometimes realize. They notice how adults respond when stress levels are high. They notice how conflict is handled and whether leaders stay steady under pressure and whether people are treated with dignity when mistakes happen. So over time, those repeated experiences start defining the culture far more than any slogan or initiative ever could. And I think sometimes leaders unintentionally overestimate the power of messaging while underestimating the power of modeling. We love the mission statement, the kickoff, the big launch moment, and those things do matter, but culture is ultimately shaped in the daily interactions that people experience over and over again. Michael Burt talks about activating prey drive. That's Prey drive. It's that internal drive that pulls people towards something meaningful and compelling. And one thing I've learned in leadership is this: you can't activate belief in people if the culture around them consistently contradicts the message that you're trying to communicate.
That's so true. And honestly, in my world of athletics, athletes see that immediately. You can tell a team we care about character all day long, but if coaches lead through fear or inconsistency or ego, athletes know that and see through it right away. And the one thing that I appreciated about Dr. Mackey's comments was the reminder that kids are always watching, not sometimes, always. And I don't think that should make leaders paranoid. I think it should make us more intentional, because leadership's contagious. The way we walk into a room, the way we respond in frustration, the way we speak to custodians and teachers and students and parents, all of it teaches something. And honestly, I think students remember those moments far longer than we realize.
Yes, and that leads perfectly into something Dr. Lickona said that really challenged me. He talked about how schools often misunderstand character education because they think it's mostly posters on the wall and announcements over the PA. And then he said, culture requires relationships. It takes time, love, effort, patience, and perseverance. And that's such an important leadership reminder, because today we live in a culture obsessed with quick wins, but culture work, it's slow work. That's one of the things that we've really learned through our work at Hope Institute. And I think leaders sometimes get discouraged because they don't immediately see the result. But the truth is, the most meaningful things happen in a school are often invisible at first. Trust is invisible before it becomes visible. Belonging is invisible before it changes behavior, and hope is invisible before it changes outcomes.
Gosh, that's so true. And honestly, I think that's why consistency matters so much. People want transformation overnight, But culture, character, those kind of words that we're using interchangeably, that's built through repetition. It's one conversation at a time. It's one interaction at a time. It's one consistent response at a time. In the coaching world and the athletics world, we talk a lot about character and culture in that intentional time that we spend developing those. It's not something that's that slogan that we've talked about. It's that consistent daily, weekly conversation. And one thing that I kept thinking about while listening to Dr. Lickona was this: healthy culture isn't created through intensity. It's created through consistency. Anybody can lead well for a day. Anybody can cast a vision in August. Dr. Lickona talked about perseverance, and that word matters. Leadership, it's really an endurance sport. It's about continuing to reinforce what matters long after the excitement fades, in the muck and the grind of what we do sometimes. And I think that's why the summit was so powerful. We saw hundreds of educators still choosing to do this work, choosing relationships, choosing culture, choosing character.
So, as we wrap up today, maybe the challenge this month looks a little different because most of you listening aren't walking school hallways right now. For most of our listeners, school's out for the summer, and for many educators, this season gives us something we rarely get during the year: a little space to breathe, reflect, and think about who we want to be when the pace picks up again. And whether you're a principal, a teacher, a counselor, a coach, or someone supporting students behind the scenes, every person in a school helps to shape the culture that students experience. So here's the reflection we want to leave you with. Fast forward to the first few weeks of the next school year. Students walk into your classroom, office, hallway, practice field, or building for the very first time. Staff members reconnect. New students arrive carrying excitement, anxiety, sometimes insecurity, and hope, sometimes all at once. And before anyone fully understands the school rules, the schedules, or the expectations, they'll already be forming conclusions about the culture around them, not because of a slogan on the wall or some sort of kickoff meeting, but because of what they consistently experience from the adults around them. Will people feel seen? Will they feel safe asking for help? Will they feel encouraged and challenged, respected, and valued? Because culture starts forming long before that first big initiative ever begins.
And maybe that's the real question for all of us this summer. What will people consistently experience from me next year? Not just what will they hear from me, what will they truly experience? Because students may not remember every lesson we teach, but they will remember how they felt in our presence. And the beautiful thing about this work is that you don't have to hold a leadership title to shape culture. Every interaction matters. Every classroom matters. Every conversation matters. So before the pace of the school year starts moving fast again, maybe this summer is an opportunity to reflect on the kind of environment you want students and colleagues to experience around you. Because culture is rarely built in one dramatic moment. It's built in small, ordinary moments that happen consistently over time. And every new school year gives us another chance to lead those moments with greater intentionality.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this month on Character Conversation. We hope these micro episodes give you something meaningful to carry back to your school, your team, or your leadership. And if this episode encouraged you, would you share it with another leader who's doing this work too? That's how this conversation continues to grow.
And be sure to connect with us on Instagram at coc.podcast. We love hearing your takeaways, your stories, and the ways you're building cultures of character in your own communities. Remember, culture is not built in one big moment. It's built in the unseen moments repeated over time. One interaction, one relationship, one decision at a time. Thanks for listening to Communities of Character. We'll see you next time.